No more to roam. Home is where the heart is.
We are here at the United States PRE Association offices in Wellington, Florida. I'm here with Yana Rumbo, another member of our board of directors, and Robert Dover, who is from Wellington, Florida, and has recently been named as the new technical advisor and chef d'équipe of the United States Dressage team. For those of you who don't know Robert, and there are very few in the equestrian world who don't, Robert is a six-time U.S. Olympian and has represented the United States as an ambassador as well as a rider for many years, and we are excited that he has recently taken this position and going to take the American team into new heights. He's a multiple medalist on the Olympic and world stage, and speaks with great experience about the very highest levels of horse sport in this country.
You know, it's really interesting because Yana has known me since I was a child, and we go back so far, even to well before there was a Palm Beach Dressage Derby, because Yana was living in Florida, and I, as a child, lived in Florida before I started moving around. And at that time, I rode with the father of one of our present Olympians, Tina Cunyat. His name is Alex Cunyat, and Alex specialized with in dressage with Spanish horses. More than, I would say, just pure Spanish horses, but he always had pure Spanish horses in his stable. And so I can say that I was raised on Spanish horses from the beginning, pretty much the beginning of my career.
Wow. That's right. I met you at Alex Cognac.
Really?
When you were riding a Spanish horse.
Yeah.
And I think you were only 10 years old.
I think a little older than that. I think that when I first started to ride in Florida, I had come back from living in the Bahama Islands, and so I was probably 14 and a half. You were right. But I looked like I was 10.
Yeah, but that's right. I saw you ride one of Alex's horses, doing all the Grand Prix movements when you were a very, very young
teenager.
Yes, that's right.
That's it. Yeah. And so I had a love for the Spanish horses from the beginning, because they were so refined, in the way you dealt with them was so refined. And of course, Alex Cunyat was an artist, meaning that he had the kind of sensibility that was more than just a typical horseman.
You remember he had the bell?
Oh yeah.
And he would do the bell in a certain rhythm, and the horse would do the passage and the piaffe into a certain rhythm.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he was a genius, and the horses were wonderful. And so I think that a great deal of what I learned and how I interpreted feelings from horses came from Spanish horses as I was a child. I remember them being quite large for me, and of course, you know, when you get on a Spanish horse, even if it isn't tall, you get a feeling that you're on something that's as big as most big warm bloods that are like between 16.2 and 17 hands.
Right.
I can remember many times jumping off and hitting the ground so fast that I thought I would like do something to my knees. But truly, you get a feeling like you're on a horse that has a great deal of volume.
I would say probably from that point, then you probably saw them in competition, you know, with Rafael Soto or with Juan Manuel, and some of the good ones that have come out of Spain. And what did you think when you were seeing them? This would be in the 90s and the first decade.
Or the Vivento.
Yeah,
With it.
well, and it was one of the best.
Yeah.
And truly, when I would see them, I would always wonder how they were going to be judged, first of all, in the beginning especially, because you had this preconceived notion that unless a warm blood was in the arena, there were probably going to be lower scores being given. And then at one point in the 80s, the Lipizaners from what was then former Yugoslavia did very well on a European and World Championships. And that honestly was the beginning of seeing Iberian horses doing better and gaining more respect. And then I think that the horses like Avento and Raphael's horse and these various different horses came along sort of one at a time and showed that despite the fact that they might not fit the exact image of what people perceive to be the great horse, movement to movement, they made up a huge number of points. And this is what has been taking place now over the last decade, where, or more now, where you've seen horse after horse, and now of course with Fuego, and of course with Hampton Green Farms, great horse, now your stallion, right, is doing so well at the Grand Prix level because not only do they have the gaits and the expression, but they still have those special highlights of fabulous piaffe passage, wonderful pirouettes. And if they can do all the rest, then they deserve to have the points, and they gain them. The best was the stomping of everybody's feet in the bleachers, and you had, 28,000 people stomping their feet on the ground because they had this aesthetic, immediate feeling that goes when you see art happen, and they so loved seeing Fuego in that freestyle that I think that it was a big game changer for the Spanish.
Sure.
And it started here in America.
Which was amazing too, right?
It's amazing, and it's a place where our personal opinion is that the horse can do very well.
Yeah.
But it was just that the very best of the warm blood world, next to the very best of the Baroque or the Iberian world, back to back, and there were so many similarities and so many things to get excited about, and it won the Americans.
Yeah.
And a lot of others too.
I think that, this just shows you that great horses really are not about their color or about their breed. What they are is about, really in the end, having characteristics that tend to overlap from one breed to the next. So now when you see a Totalis and you see a Fuego, there are more similarities than there are differences.
That's right.
And truly, you've had a horse in your life, Gaucho, too, that I can remember saying to you one day in the Hamptons, give me that horse, I will take that to the Olympics. And because I loved that horse. And there was this, he had the beautiful face, but also all the characteristics of the gaits.
Very correct gaits.
Absolutely.
Very, very correct gaits.
Yeah. And the desire to go.
Right.
And that's another thing that I think is a great thing about the Spanish horses, is that they are go-y horses. They don't have a quit in them.
Right.
And depending upon how well schooled they are, they will retain that sort of fire and desire to go no matter what age they are.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that what has been truly a missed opportunity is that the Spanish horse, if you think of even just cost effectiveness, the Spanish horse at the end of the day, when it's Grand Prix, versus how many people spend so much money on young horses that are warm bloods, the Spanish horse, for all practical purposes, will end up meeting the same score, or sometimes beating those scores, of these warm bloods that get to the end as well. So here's what I'm saying. I think that it's about finding what you would basically call the freaks of nature within every breed.
Every
And
every breed.
Yeah.
and the most wonderful types with the greatest gaits, regardless of what breed and race they come from, are going to be the ones that I'm hoping that Americans buy. And what I don't want them to do is discriminate against or overlook a breed that has so much potential to come up to and be equivalent to the highest scores of today within that, say, top group of 12 horses. Fuego's shown that, Your Stallion has shown that.
What would be your advice to someone who, say, just bought a 5-year-old and says, you know, where do I go? How do I train this horse here in America to have that kind of success?
In all honesty, from my experience with horses in the past, but also my horse right now that I have, the hardest thing is not training or allowing them, in a sense, to get ahead of themselves. It is so much about the fact that his basics have been implanted in a way that I believe to be truly from and I use this word, even though I don't love this word, classically, because I think that people use that word and they use it so often to actually discriminate against other forms of training. But in all honesty, this horse has been trained in such a way that he is absolutely adjustable, mentally extremely happy and emotionally happy all the time, and very supple and energetic at all times. So he does things and he's learned things because from the very beginning he's only had one set of rules.
One system.
That's right.
And so for him it hasn't been about is this really complicated? He just has learned to be correctly forward, then correctly straight, and then learn the basics of half halts. And from those basics, all of these things spring out naturally out of the well-trained horse, regardless of what breed it is. It just so happens that with this horse, if you think piaffe, he starts into a piaffe as if you were 13 years old and had been doing it for 5 years.
But what do you think,
Like-
Jana, as far as training?
That's what Robert said, that the training scale, the normal training scale that you teach horses and you have only, and you just stay to the same system, these horses learn unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the minute they know a half halt, the movements are easy for these horses when they know the basic training. And they are very good at the basic training.
Yeah.
And the only thing for me with them is because they're short in the back, that you really have to do a lot of the training with the shoulder in so they can bend their ribs.
Oh, you're so
bend
right.
the ribs to both sides.
You're so right.
And you can, like, when you canter them, because it's so easy for them when you teach them the canter to collect, that you can control the neck in any position you want, up, down, in, out. And when you, it's just such a pleasure.
That
It's
you're
such a pleasure.
100% right. The challenge, and I think the challenge that many people maybe do not live up to, is creating a beautiful connection that is adjustable laterally, such that there's beautiful bend in each direction from nose to tail, but a maintenance of true contact. Because what happens, because they are built in such a way that collection comes so easily to them, it's very easy to begin something and then not have a true contact. Which takes me back to my childhood, because when I say that we weren't allowed to touch the reins were looped through. And so if I thought of competitive dressage versus what I learned as a child from Alex, the difference would have been the kind of connection that I maintain with my horses versus what I was taught at that time of my life.
Right.
Those horses did things with much less bend
Right.
and much less contact, and yet they did things while you sat absolutely still And if you moved too much, you were told that you were moving too much on no uncertain terms. But the slightest, tiniest movements had great meaning to these horses. And today, on my own horse, when I'm riding him, even though Nicholas Fife is his rider, when I'm riding him, I am extremely aware of how the very tiniest movements within my body create something in him. He's knowledgeable of every single tiny muscle movement, and they have meaning to him. Whereas I could be on many other horses, and I am on a daily basis, and though that same degree of movement would be nothing. It would be nothing to many of the other horses. It would have no bearing on how they would go.
Yeah.
But that's how tuned in.
That's right, but they still have to be able to take you. The Spanish horse
Absolutely.
have the connection, and they take
That's
you
it.
everywhere.
That's
and
it.
that is where the high performance come in, where they got to take you.
That's it. And that's the difference of, I think, what it was once upon a time and what it is right now. This is about, many times, the training of the horses too, from the beginning to the end, that you're aware of this flexibility, bending and lengthening as opposed to shortening, and having a horse come behind the action of the rein and shorten his neck. So it's part of the training, it's part of the conformation. It's your job as a great breeder of this breed to keep breeding horses that will eventually be of a type that we don't think so much about the length of the neck as purchasers of horses. So, and I think that this is where you've done a beautiful job, is you've been considerate always of the 3 paces, the type of horse that you're breeding, the expression, and all of the things that are necessary to make an Olympic international winner, as opposed to someone who is so set on having a breed-specific animal that they're only breeding anything just because it is that breed.
What would you advise for people who say, I breed these horses, I've got excellent bloodlines, I've got champions from Spain and offspring of champions. Now, what are the few things I need to do in my own selection to make these horses dressage horses?
Well, I think that for myself, the easiest way to help someone define for themselves what their standard should be is to take a look at the top of the line of any breed right now at the Olympics or World Championship level, see what characteristics those horses have, and then say, am I breeding horses that meet those characteristics, and that are the characteristics that the FEI handbook says are necessary in order to be a winning dressage horse. This is the same thing that I say when people say to me, what about my horse? Is my horse good enough? And I say, here's what you do. Take your video of your horse. Now take a look at Totalis or take a look at Vallegro doing the Grand Prix. Look at yours, look at Vallegro. Look at yours, look at Vallegro. It's going to be very clear.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So that's the same way I would say to people that are breeding horses, look at horses like Grandioso, look at horses like Fuego, some of the others that have been very successful. Why were they successful, and am I breeding something that can be as good or maybe even hopefully better someday than those that have gone before?
Well, I think we have the potential here. We have terrific bloodlines and
this
good
is
breeders.
We're very lucky here in the United States because you have so many different stallions from all over and different mares, and people have bought very, very good horses in Spain. And it's not like the same family that has the same bloodlines.
Right.
You can mix them, and you can look at one that has a little bit longer back, one that has a little bit longer neck, and see if you can make the horses better that way.
Absolutely.
And
And I think that it's always about having those particular animals that go in and blow the judges away and change perceptions, just like Fuego did when he was here in Lexington, Kentucky. I believe that it's just going to require that some great horses go down some center lines and change people's minds so that they recognize the value in the Spanish breed. That one thing that they will know is if they have the 3 gaits, they are also going to have exquisite piaffe and passage, amazing pirouettes, and if they also have that beautiful canter, then they'll have the points. And in the end, it doesn't matter from what country you are or how long you've been judging. If you see greatness, I think you pretty well know it, and that's what it's going to require, and again until there is no discrimination.
Right. Ask him.
Oh, I think this is wonderful, and I hope that one day there will be a different breed on the U.S. team. That would be very interesting.
It would make me happy too to see great horses on the American team, regardless of their breed. That would be the best thing that could possibly happen, and certainly I am the first one to say that a Grandioso of that quality, that has just as good of a chance of making an American team as any other horse going for the American team. So that's what we have to hope, that we see more Fuegos, more Grandiosos, and I believe Fierro will fit in beautifully into that kind of
And there are more.
ability level as well.
We know some good ones that are.
Yeah, I think that there's one super one on the West Coast at the
is.
moment, right, doing the small tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Really
we'll
super.
see how that moves up into the Grand Prix as well.
It's really in the hands. I believe we have the stock here. I believe it's in the hands of the
It
trainers.
is. It's all the
Yeah.
trainer is
Yeah.
the training, and they get in the right hands.
Yeah,
Right.
and that is the truth, and that is the way it is with all of them.
With every horse.
Right. It's
Every
all,
horse.
and you can, making a good horse into a great horse is all about training.
Yeah,
That's right.
It is patience and training.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, well, we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank
We're
you
here
so
behind
much.
you. We're
This is
Team
wonderful.
USA.
Thank you.
and
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh,
very
we
much.
all are looking forward to see what's happening.
I know, it's exciting.
Well, I'm going to work very hard, that's
I
for
know
sure.
you are. We know that.
Make a home where we settle down. There'll be no